Hey, everybody, and welcome to the webinar today. We're very excited to have you. My name is Jeff Perkins. I'm the CMO of QASymphony, and today we will be taking you through some of the new features in our latest release, qTest 7.4. So we're really glad you can join us today. A couple things about the viewing experience. We do stream this webcast through the computer's audio, so just make sure you have your speakers turned up. If your audio is a little bit choppy, I recommend you move closer to maybe where your wireless hub is in your home or office. And you could also, it's a better experience sometimes if you hardwire into an internet connection versus being on wireless. But we hope you can hear us clearly, and we're able to bring you this webinar. So before we kick it off, I want to go through a couple quick things. The first is we have a great event coming up next week, April 13th in Atlanta. This event is called Quality Jam. It is our first user conference. We're going to have some great speakers, including Scott Birkin, Keith Klain, Michael Cooper, Ian Culling. So if you are interested in the event, please visit qualityjam.com to get more information. Tickets are $200 each. It's a one-day event. But if you're interested and you want to attend, we're going to give you the code for webinar attendees. It's QAS100. Again, QAS100. And use that code when you check out so you can get the $200 ticket for just $100. So we'll hope to see you there next week. I also want to tell you about our next webinar, which is sure to be one you won't want to miss. It's called Test Estimation Hacks, Tips, and Tricks. So definitely check out this webinar featuring Matt Hesser. Matt is many of you know, is a thought leader, author, speaks on a variety of topics in the testing world. So this is going to be a great webinar coming up on April 22nd. And as you're watching this webinar, you'll be able to see we put some links to resources. So actually from this webinar, you're going to be able to go in and just click the link in the widget on your screen, and you could register for this webinar right there. So we hope you can join us again Thursday, April 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Now I'm going to turn it over to our speaker for today, Ryan Yackel. Ryan is the Senior Product Engineer at QASymphony. In his role, Ryan really serves as the customer voice for our products. Ryan comes to us from Macy's, where he managed testing on large enterprise initiatives. He's a certified Scrum Master from Scrum Alliance and holds a BA from Covenant College. So with that, Ryan, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, hey everyone, good to talk with everybody today, and we've got kind of a full-packed schedule here. We're going to be talking about really three products that, one, some of you all may be using right now, and some of you may not be. And so the majority of people we know, of course, are going to be using qTest, and what we've really done for this release was really focus on the power user, those that are actually going to be using qTest on a day-to-day, where you need to do some quick filtering, you need to utilize a data query more, and copying and pasting, things like that. We're going to be talking about that and how those power enhancements are for the user around qTest. And then for qTest Explorer, we focused around really making the creation of your test cases from Explorer much easier and much faster when it comes to pushing them over into qTest for test design for them to be reused. And then also we've been creating some native links back and forth between your defect trackers, such as using Jira, so you can actually get all the way back to the session ID in a quick fashion. And then, of course, some of you all may be using qTest Scenario, which is our latest product that came out in the Atlassian marketplace for BDD, TDD, and ATDD type testing that's going on in your organization. We've had a great track record of people actually signing up for that. We've made some overall improvements to that as well. And one of the main ones is it's actually integrated now with your qTest platform. So before we had it kind of as an add-on only for Jira, but now we're pushing that data over into qTest. So we'll walk through some of those today. And kind of what I'll do is I'll go through the slides, then I'll pause. I'll do the demonstration of what we just talked about. Then I'll hop back into the next product for this release. So let's get started with qTest and walk through some of the main features that we're seeing. So one of the things we wanted to really help out with teams that are using more of the Atlassian stack was to improve our ecosystem with Atlassian and focus on the next logical progression, which would be over into HipChat. We know a lot of people are using HipChat or Slack or some type of communication tool along with using Jira. And so what we did was really built a HipChat add-on that would go inside of HipChat and allow users to basically share test cases, test runs, test suites, some of that release data back and forth between teams in those chat groups, rather than having to maybe email somebody something or talk to somebody. Really what we allow you to do is copy and paste a URL of the artifact that you're in qTest so that a user can see a quick card of that, the status of that, and then take actionable actions on that to click into it, be brought over into qTest. So HipChat is definitely something that we see a lot of people use, and we wanted to bring that to the forefront of having an integration with qTest. And it's in beta right now. It's a free add-on. If you were to go online and download it, it's free. So definitely check that out. We'll be walking through that today. And then we also wanted to enhance the data query in a couple ways. One of the ways that we see a lot of times is if you're in a tree view and you're looking at the data that's on the left side there and you want to then maybe make some batch edits, or you want to quickly just get to that data in more of an output format through the data query, what we've done is we've allowed you to basically just right click on the data query on the folder that you're on. And what that will do is it'll streamline you over into the data query area where you can then make those edits. So what we're wanting to do is, instead of having to remember the folder you're in or the data that you are looking at, we're just going to grab the data you're looking at right away, dump it to the data query so you can quickly make those actions, whether those are batch edits or approving something or assigning to somebody else. So that's the first enhancement we made to the data query to really get to the data you want in a faster manner. And then the second enhancement we did was to pull over your test case data that revolves around your test execution data. So for example, if you've got test case data, like if you've added a bunch of like custom properties and you've said maybe you want to add a risk value to the test case, well, before you could only query by test run execution data when you're actually going and building out your test planning over in the execution area. So what we've done is we said, okay, well, if you've got, let's say, 5 tests that have passed, and of those 5 tests you want to rerun those 5 tests, you can then query by give me all my test cases that have passed that have a test case value, not necessarily a test run value, to then quickly generate those into a brand new execution. So we're bringing the power of the data query from the test design area, and we're dumping it over in the test execution area to quickly create those test runs you may need to execute. Then the next enhancement we did was to copy and paste across different projects. And so some people that are on our enterprise or on our elite package, you're utilizing the test case sharing option, which is to basically say and have one source record of your test cases in one project and share that with another project. And so what we've done is, instead of having to copy or export the data into Excel and then export the data over into another project, what we've allowed you to do is to just right click on a folder and then copy it into a brand new project to do that very fast. So we still have true test case sharing, but then we also have copy and pasting across projects, so you can actually, if you want to have duplicate test cases in multiple projects, you can do that in a quick manner now. And then the last qTest enhancement that we made, or sorry, there's 2 others. What we've done is we've added filtering to the tree view, and the filtering on the tree view is something that is going to help you be able to remove a lot of the clutter that's actually on that tree view. So, for example, if you wanted to only show all of the test cases that are in a certain status, or only show the test cases that are assigned to you, you can do that through the tree filtering. And then also we've pushed that all the way over to all across all the different tabs. So if you just want to show, if you've got 15 releases and you only want to show the values for one release, you can just get rid of all that clutter to have a more powerful filter on the left side without having you to expand and contract the folders you want to. You can just use the filter settings to do that. And then the last enhancement we made to the qTest is to incorporate a new test run notification, which allows you to, if you've got, let's say, contingent test runs that are built on one tester running it, then another tester running it, we've built out a test run notification that allows that user to be notified that, hey, Jeff just ran this test case, it failed. By the way, here's your test run and your test URL that you need to go run right away. So it really does help out with contingent workflows around the test runs need to run in a sequential manner. And we've built that in for a notification that goes directly to the inbox of the tester to get started on and go right away. So with that said, let me just go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to pause the slide sharing here to then go to a full screen mode. Okay, let me go ahead and move this up here so we can get a good view. Okay, so we should be loading up here. Now I just want to kind of go through and demo each of those features. So in qTest, you should see a couple things up in the top, or one of the big things in the top left corner, which is that filtering capability. But what I want to do first is show you that to get to the data that you want, and especially as you're going through and looking at maybe different functional areas in qTest that you want to maybe approve or reassign to somebody in a fast manner, I'll actually go to the functional area 1 here and look at my park view test cases and go to this untitled section. So if I have all these tests or all these test cases that I want to either batch approve, or if I want to reassign it to somebody, all I have to do is right click on that folder and click the data query option now. And what that does is it then brings you to that data query that we just talked about, which drops in the module ID for you, so you can then go forth and start running or start editing any of the test cases you have through the data query. So that's just a powerful feature we added to help you quickly get to that data. The same way in terms of filtering out any clutter as we want to do is the same as on the filter view up at the top here. And when you click on the filter test case view, you'll have an example. One, to either refresh the page if you want to get the most up-to-date information. But when you set the filter, you have a couple different options to select from. So if I wanted to select and say, give me all my test cases that are ready for baseline or even ready for baseline, you can pull these results and it'll automatically filter what's going on the left side over here. And a lot of people wanted this feature mainly because one, it removes, of course, the clutter that maybe if you're assigned to only test cases or baseline, if you come in during the day, you only want to show test cases you need to work on. It's a great way to divvy out the workload that you may have to do. The other one is that we've had customers talk about needing to export this data and then re-import it. And so now if you want to just query about, hey, give me all my folders that are ready for baseline, that need to be passed off to maybe some end users to validate, you can export that data and re-import it. And all along, you kind of know right away that you're pulling off the stats that you filtered. And of course, this filters across the test plan, requirement, test executions, all across all the modules up at the top here. So you could use the same filter to go ahead and do that when you're filtering out any executions you may need to run. The next feature we talked about was the notifications, actually on the email notifications you can send. So if I click on those email notifications right here, you'll see that in the test run section, one is that when you click on to add a new event or adjust an event, you'll notice as we have a lot more values to pick from that are on the notified fields. So we've expanded the notified fields section, and then also we've expanded the capabilities of the types of recipients you want to receive these emails. And so instead of just being associated to the assignee or creator, we have this new value, which is to assign or alert the assignee of the next test run to go off and run that execution. I've actually built out a template here that shows you exactly how I did that. And so in the template, you notice I've got certain values here that are going to help out with notifying the next tester that it's ready to be executed. And the way you select those variables is up at the top here, and scroll down. You can select these three here if you're specifically trying to use that use case of trying to notify that tester. So we can also put this up as an example on our website. We'll just show you kind of as we walk through here the different variables you can set up. But this is one where if I were to run this and execute it, I'll get an email notification that alerts me to go off and run that execution. Then over in test execution, we talked about having the ability to query by values that are on the test case ID, test case value. So if I actually go back to the test design, I'll show you let me go ahead and clear this filter here. I'll go ahead and show you kind of a custom value that we've added on the test design. So in this functional area 3 here, I've created one that talks about navigating to a polo section. But in this test case, I've added down below, I've added in a value that says the risk assessment is medium on this test case. And so if I wanted to, if I ran this test case multiple times, I'd want to be able to, and this risk assessment was across all these different test cases, I may want to pull back only the test runs that are failed and have a risk assessment of medium or high. And that's what we can do with our new data query enhancement, which is if you come in here and you select the test suite that you want to execute, I'll go ahead and show you just in the top right corner here, when you add your test runs and you enter into the data query, you've got multiple options now when you actually select the test execution tab. So this test execution tab, when I click on it, you'll notice that one, I've already built out a query to kind of show off these features. But for example, the risk assessment is equal to medium and it's also passed. That's the exact scenario that we talked about. And what this does is when I click on the criteria, if you scroll down through the criteria, we'll give you indication that the values you've added, whether they're custom values or you've adjusted any of the system generated values, will let you know that you're querying based off of the field that's labeled by test case. So if you want to pull in test case artifacts or test case values from the test design, you want to use these test case items that are here. And for us, we talked about having a test case value that is at a risk assessment that's equal to medium, and I also want to pull back the statuses that are passed. So when I run that, you'll see down below we've got 9 test results for that, and here's the one of the test runs that we actually ran that refers back to that polo test case we talked about earlier. So this is pulling back all those that are passed, but also based off of that value to being ran. This is going to help out a lot with regression testing and just really getting at the data from a test design view that you may want to see. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to go back to the screen share here. Okay. Okay, so those are the qTest values. We're going to now talk about qTest Explorer. In qTest Explorer, we've added a lot of stuff when it comes to just minor tweaks that you'll notice when you're actually in the tool is going to help out with your test case creation and updates for test case preview. So we have a lot of customers that are using Explorer to, one, maybe do some initial exploratory testing, and then out of that exploratory testing, you're grabbing any manual tests or scripted test cases you may need to run later on. And the power of Explorer, of course, besides defect submission, is being able to create those test cases in detail. And what we've done is we've added free text search for test case design folders. So instead of having to go one by one when you're trying to figure out kind of where to push this test case into a folder, you can just simply type in sprint2 regression test case, whatever you want, and it'll actually pull in that folder that you're looking for. And we've also done that with updating existing test cases as well. You can actually search by your test case that you need to update with Explorer, and it'll pull that back. The next thing we've done is add in test step thumbnails for the previews. And so with the steps that you've typed out or the Explorer's captured, before you had a submission form that just gave you the text, and you had no idea really, besides looking on the left side of Explorer to figure out where they went, corresponding to their screen. So now we're giving you a quick view into what these steps and what the screens match up to for that submission process. We've also added for those that are really needing to get back and view the data in your session manager, we've provided two quick links, one on the Jira side where we'll push over the session URL. So whenever, it's a lot of times when people just use Explorer and they go off and do some exploratory testing, there's no script associated with that. When they log a defect over into an external tool, the defect will go in fine, but if the developer wants to know more information about the session that was captured, they're going to have to remember the session name and type it into the data to the session manager to find it. But what we've done is we've given you a quick link in the description where they can just click on it, and that'll take them directly over into qTest where they can see all the test run results of that. And then we've also added another link on the Sessions tab where after you've completed a session, you'll be brought, or qTest will open up that session manager that's at the end. But if you want to see all the session details, you can simply click on the link and it'll switch you back over into that session. And then for all those using Mobile Explorer, we've got a lot of feedback on just using different platforms to do their mobile development. And so Apache Cordova and Ionic were two of the main ones we kept on hearing. And so now we've kind of expanded our Mobile Explorer support on multiple platforms outside of Xcode and Android Studio, Eclipse, things like that, where we're moving more towards Apache Cordova and Ionic. So now we've got multiple ways to, one, deploy your agent inside of those platforms that you're supporting, and to easily not have to worry about kind of what platforms you want to develop your applications on. So that's something you'll need to check out if you're using either Ionic or Apache Cordova to do your mobile app development. So let me go ahead and share my screen again. We're going to just kind of walk through some of the Explorer features that I was talking about here. So let me close this down. Let's go ahead and start here. All right, so this is an output of an Explorer session. So you can see down below, I've got all this, of course on the left side, I've got all the screens we have. One thing I want to highlight is we had a request for this and just want to make sure everyone knows that we did this. But when some people want to export their Explorer data, we have the option now to hide or show the links or the hotspots that are on qTest Explorer. And you can either show all of these or hide all of these but down below just by clicking, basically showing the action spots or not showing the action spots. So for people that are using Explorer to create user documentation that may not want to have these icons being displayed, you can simply hide those to export that data. That was a feature request we had for a lot of people using Explorer. But for those that are using Explorer to create test cases, if I click on the test case preview button, this is where we were talking about being able to either update an existing test case or push it over into a brand new test case. So if I were to come up to the test module here and just search by it'll pull back all of the values that are part of that folder. So I can easily click into that test module folder that I want to push my data over into, rather than having to scroll through a bunch of folders that are unnecessary. The screen capture view, the thumbnail view here we talked about, this is where you can see that, I was clicking on the new tab to get to QASymphony for test execution. But what I want to be able to do is just match that up and make sure that those steps correspond with the screen that I've captured. So the thumbnail just helps out with that to make sure you're corresponding those steps with the appropriate test screen captures that you've collected. And of course, this works the same way when you're updating existing test case as well. You can search by the test case name and then also the folder you want to push this over into. So just a couple of options here, and it'll really help with organizing the tests you create over in qTest Explorer, but also updating the ones in Explorer as well. And then when I select the screens that I want to actually push over into, let's say, Jira, when I select those and then click the submit button here, of course we're submitting over into Jira to push this defect over. But what you'll notice is we'll push over that session URL up at the top here. So we've got that for the developer, the business analyst that wants to quickly get back over into the session manager to view all the details of that. And I'll actually show you, if I create this, we'll go ahead and take a look at that and see how that works. Just because it's really fast for you to communicate what you're seeing with exploratory testing or with any of your scripted testing that you're using Explorer for. So we're going to submit this over into Jira. We'll get pulled back a session ID here. We'll go ahead and click on that ID, and then we'll go and take a look at that over in Jira. So there's the issue here. I'm seeing that we're loading a little bit slow on the webinar, so let me just pause here for a little bit. All right, cool. I think we're caught up. So now when a developer is reviewing all of the steps here along with the attachments of the screens they've collected, if maybe you've submitted only maybe 3 screens or 4 screens, all you have to do now is click on the URL to then go directly to qTest, where you can see the entire list of all the screens you've collected. So we're just trying to make it a lot cleaner for you to, one, communicate with your developer, especially if they're not finely tuned with Explorer and maybe not know the product as well as you do. This is a simple way for them to understand, okay, I click this link to get over to review all the screens of the defects submitted. And if they need to see anything that deals with the session detail screen, they can always click on the view session detail link up in the top left corner, and that will bring them to the session detail screen where majority of all of your data, whether you've created test cases, your application information, your system information, all of that will be listed, of course, on the session manager for you. So those are the Explorer enhancements. We're now going to move on to qTest Scenario. And qTest Scenario is, again, one of our newer products that was an add-on into the Atlassian marketplace. And it really does facilitate for those teams or pockets of teams that are using ATD or TDD type testing, BDD. So if you hear that language in your organization, definitely have those types of teams go out and do a trial of this on the Atlassian marketplace, because now what we're about to show is that it's also integrated directly with qTest. But before we get to showing the integration with qTest, I do want to highlight that we've got some new reports inside of Jira, especially around release tracking. And so when you're running these feature scenarios and executing them through an automated fashion or a manual fashion, you'll be able to see at a release level the current status of all those features along with the scenario progress. So this is an additional to the progress tracker report that we generated earlier, and it really does give you an insight into all those BDD type test cases that are running inside of the current release of a project. The next report we gave was a full traceability report of all of those features and scenarios and the statuses of those. So being able to pull and say, okay, for this particular feature, how many of my scenarios are passing or failing? That's a report that's instantly available for you now. It's actually in our newest build that came out maybe a couple of weeks ago. All you have to do is select the qTest scenario traceability report that will be at the top of any of the searching for issues inside of Jira. And then the last is our qTest integration. So how our qTest integration works is that if you create a feature file with scenarios attached to that, what happens is that we pull over the feature file as a test case inside of qTest, and what we also do is pull over the steps of that scenario, or pull over the scenarios into the steps of an actual test case. And so whenever the scenarios go off to run, if they pass or if they fail, you will roll up that data over in the test execution area where you can see basically what features are passing or failing depending on how many scenarios are actually being ran. And I'll actually show you kind of what that looks like here over in our qTest scenario site here. So let me go ahead and pull that up. I'll go to sharing my screen now. So in qTest scenario, if you go to the scenario page here, this is where all of the new release tracker I was talking about. So if you click on the release tracker, this is where you can select based off your release any of the statuses of those features that are inside of those particular projects. So this is where you can go and pull that data. Where you want to go and run the executions, you can actually go and run the manual executions or automated executions, of course, directly in Jira. Sorry. So let me actually go and click on one of these features here. So this demo 01 feature, this feature has multiple scenarios attached to that, and these scenarios are either being ran and kicked off through Maven and executed on our server and then reported back into Jira, which then reports back over to qTest, or you can now manually update and execute those directly inside of Jira. So that was another feature we had, which was if we are creating any of that, those features and scenarios that maybe had not had associated automation tied to it just yet, we still want to be able to mark these statuses in the tool. And you can do that by coming in here, entering in the user that's running this, and either applying a mass status to all of them or coming in here and marking each of these as a different value. And when I add that here, since I had this connected over with qTest, what you'll notice is back over on the qTest side, we're already adding the statuses and the views of that in Jira, but now we've pushed it over into qTest where you can see the executions that have ran based off of whoever's actually ran that execution. So this is that demo 01 execution that we just ran, and if I drill into it, you can see here that we were incompleting some of the steps and failing and then passing some of the scenarios. And what we've done is, since we want to make sure all the scenarios are passing before we label the feature as passing, you notice that the entire test run over here for this demo 1-1 feature is actually in a failure. And so people are going to be using this a lot more for, one, getting more analytics around their BDD type testing. We'll be able to push data over into qTest along with the other traceability reports you talked about earlier to really show off kind of a full cycle of either doing manual testing, exploratory testing, automated testing, automated functional testing, and also now BDD and TDD type testing and reporting back over to the qTest platform. So definitely something to share with your team if they've not already checked out the plugin. I'll actually go back to our presentation here and close out here with a couple other things we want to make sure and highlight for this presentation. One thing that we want to definitely highlight, and this is something that's going to be expandable across lots of different releases and also any new features that are rolling out, is our video training center. And we want to make sure you're aware of this because, one, we want to make sure that if you are onboarding new members of your team, if you need to get them ramped up to qTest very quickly, you can do that by going to the video training center and having them just go through each of the different playlists that are part of our product suite. We've got it for qTest and qTest Explorer as well. So just by selecting the product and then selecting the playlist that goes underneath that product, this is a great way to get your team very much up to speed on what you're actually going to be having them do inside of the tools. And then, of course, if you ever have any questions around the features we just rolled out, we have an entire customer success team that many of you have probably met before, and you probably know them by name. But definitely reach out to us, customer success at QASymphony.com, if you have any questions about kind of what we've talked about today. We'd definitely like to hear from you. So now we're going to enter in more of a Q&A session for us to kind of wrap out our time here today.
Great, thanks, Ryan. First question in, do you have any plans to integrate with any mobile testing tools?
Yeah, so I think specifically this is asking maybe around like Appium and some of the other ones that are out there. We do have plans to integrate with Appium later this year. It's really about choosing the frameworks that we want to hook into. But that is going to be something that's a part of our roadmap. We've got right now, just a refresher for everybody, we've got plugins for TestNG, Cucumber for Java, and JUnit, along with our Jenkins and Bamboo integrations that we've rolled out in the past couple of releases. But Appium testing, of course, is something that we've heard a lot from. So we're going to be, of course, investigating that later this year. And then, of course, we've got some exciting things we're going to be talking about at Quality Jam, which Jeff mentioned earlier today. A lot of announcements coming out there around our product that we'll be socializing, after the Quality Jam to the massive audience, whoever can't make it.
Next question. We integrate with HipChat now. What about Slack? A lot of requests for Slack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Slack is, of course, we went with HipChat, and one of the reasons why we went with HipChat to begin with was, of course, we're gold sponsors of Atlassian. We're at the summit every year, and we actually were talking with the R&D department of HipChat, and this is actually why we built this plugin, was because if you go on to HipChat and kind of view the latest updates that HipChat has rolled out, is that they've built in a Connect architecture that's similar to Jira. And so this is something they launched earlier this year, and we wanted to be a part of that launch as their partners with us. And so we chose HipChat specifically around that launch that Atlassian was doing to have a commitment to that ecosystem. But Slack is another one that we are investigating. But of course, we want to, if you all do use HipChat, we want to make sure that we're getting the HipChat one right. So if you use HipChat, feel free to definitely reach out to on the plugin page and give us feedback on what you want to see. We will say it is in beta format right now, so this is of course releasing it as a free product to get your feedback. And then whenever we do figure out the best new features to roll out for HipChat 2.0, that's something that we're going to be using for other app messaging tools like Slack and other ones.
Great. The new copy and paste feature, will that work with any of the different tiers of qTest across enterprise or elite?
Yep. So the copy and paste feature is for elite customers only, and the reason is because it uses the same architecture technology for test case sharing. And so the copy and paste feature is going to be an elite only feature right now. If you have questions about that, of course, you can reach out to our customer success team. But of course, the main reason why is because it does use that same architecture of test case sharing, which is an elite feature.
Great. Instead of notifying the next tester, this is specific to the test notification feature, Instead of notifying the next tester, what about notifying dev that a run is complete?
Mhm. Yeah, so what you could do is in the notifications area, there should be a way to notify a value on the, I think it's on the assignee field. So let me look real quick. Let me see if this is something that we can do. Let's see here. And it should be if it's a part of the assign area, there may be a way to do that. Right now, we built it specifically for the next test runner. But let me look. I'm just gonna look real quick for you. And let's see.
And hey, Ryan, while you're looking at that, we've got some questions in about when you're gonna have an integration with this or that. When's this feature coming? If you have a feature request, we take those very seriously here. We really like getting feature requests from our users. So please submit those. You can submit those in our support site, and we really do review those very carefully. So if there's something in the product that you need or want, it could already be in our roadmap, or if it's a feature that we hear from multiple people, it could make it into our roadmap. So I definitely encourage you to take the time and go on our support site at support.qasymphony.com and submit a feature that would help you in your job.
Yeah, and getting back, that's great. Thanks, Jeff, for pointing that out. And one of the, a lot of the features we've come out with for this specific release, as we know, we've already rolled out a prior release this year. We're going to be having around 7 or 8 more releases this year. A lot of this was due to power user feedback, that they wanted an easier way to do certain things. We've incorporated a lot of those into this new feature or this new release. The other, getting back to the question around the person asked about getting emails to the dev team. If your dev team is inside of qTest, what they can do is they can subscribe to certain test runs, and the subscriber value there is something that you can alert the actual tester for. And so if let's say you've ran a test run and the developer wants to know whenever it's actually passed, well, they can go subscribe to that test run and get alerts if it's passing or failing when you're actually going off and running those. So have them go to the test run area and click on the subscribe to this item, and that's something they can leverage to be informed about that test run status.
Great. For the session ID in the Jira ticket, can anyone access that, or do you have to have a qTest login?
Yeah, so this is where we get into talking about just depending on what licensing you have with qTest, but it's going to, when you click on that link, it's going to use the username and password of your qTest credentials. And so if you have developer licenses and you click on that link to get back over to qTest and they have a developer license, they can view that. Of course, if they don't have that, then when you're putting that data over into the Jira side, if they can't get to the session manager from that link, of course you can put more data from your Explorer submission into the Jira ticket.
Any plans for a version of Scenario that would work with version 1?
So we are partners with version 1. The difference with kind of how Atlassian and version 1 structure their architecture is that Atlassian has more of a plug-in architecture, while version 1 has more of an integration setup you'd have to do. And so we are talking with version 1. We meet with them on a monthly basis, and that is something that has been brought up. They've actually talked to us about that as well. So right now it's only for Jira, but that does not rule out that we're not going to integrate with version 1 in the future. It's just about aligning the technical alliances that we have, and also the structure that they have to support us. It's just a little bit different than Jira. It's an easier plug and play. Anybody could go on and click it, create an add-on and be accessible to everybody. So we're evaluating that, and version 1, of course, is one of our main partners.
And again, if you are a version 1 user and there are multiple version 1 users out there, I suggest that you submit that as a feature request
Yep.
because the more we hear from that from our customers, the better chance it has into making it into our roadmap. Ryan, any plans to integrate with ranorex?
We are looking to open source our current plugin architecture that we have for Cucumber and TestNG and JUnit. That's something that we're going to be looking at for later this year that would allow users to do that. From an official integration standpoint with ranorex, what we're really having people do is leverage either Bamboo or Jenkins and the plugins we have with those tools, because what the plugin does is it sits inside of those. So if you're using your build tools to run off and execute those, doesn't really matter kind of what automation framework you're using or tool. If you're running those and those get passed back to Jenkins, well, then you can package those results and push them over into qTest. So it's not that we necessarily don't integrate with Jenkins, it's just or ranorex directly. It's just we have integrations with Jenkins and Bamboo more on the build side that we're seeing a lot of people move towards. So if you're not using those, but you're just kind of running those executions from ranorex, then the plugin open source architecture may be something that you will be interested in, and we'll be talking more about that later this year.
Great. So we have a couple more minutes for questions. If you do have a question, just write it into the Q&A widget that's right there on your desktop view. Ryan, does qTest allow for mass migration of current projects and test cases from other management tools such as Testopia?
So we've got two things really that we do formal migration from, and both of those are more from our service partners. And so the self-serve way, of course, is if you export your data into Excel, you can upload the data, all the test case data directly into the test design area. From a migration standpoint, we have service partners that do test link migration services, and then also HP Quality Center migration services. We've got both of those as services that we also provide. But from a export and import functionality, I'd really encourage you to go to the QASymphony Training Center, and in that training center, there's a video on importing your data from Excel, and it's about a 2-minute video that kind of walks you through the things you're going to need to know to import from Excel. So definitely check that out, and of course we've got user guides as well there to help you out. But in more of a formal pull from Testopia, it's not a formal migration service that, or more of a, it's not like a one-click push that you could do. But if you have it through Excel, then you can upload that into qTest.
Okay. Do you have plans to delete individual execution results with the same test?
So this refers to test execution logs. One of the reasons why we do not do that right now is for ISO standards, especially if we've got a lot of customers that are in healthcare or are heavily audited. It's something that they do not allow in terms of ISO standards of the actual product. So we've kept it in there for mainly for those types of reasons. For example, if you wanted somebody to go back and just fudge the data from an execution that's already passed, that could create audit issues in the future. And so we don't do that currently. The quick way that we kind of get around that is, the latest execution run is to go in, do a quick run of that, and mark them a quick status if you need to. But we have thought about looking into if it can correspond with some of the ISO standards, is keeping an audit of the execution data that we have, and then kind of storing it at one location that it would allow people to do that. But what we're trying to do is appeal to the masses, and of course we've got teams that are regulated and some are not regulated at all. And so what we're really trying to do with our product is make sure it's a one size in that regard, to make sure we're not deterring some of our customer base from not using our product.
Great. Someone just asked, can you also import from a Google Drive spreadsheet?
Yeah, if you export from if you export from Google Drive to Excel, which a lot of us do that around the office as well. If you've got a spreadsheet from Google Drive, one click export, and then based off the Excel importation that you're going to be that the video I referenced earlier, it's really just one extra step that you'd have to do to then upload them into qTest. The reason one more thing I'll just say, the reason why we don't import from Google or from Google Docs or Excel is that they're more like kind of flat files. They're not really real things to like hook into, and so we use Excel for that. And then of course Google supports exporting all their documents into Microsoft Word documents for you to upload.
Great. And for people that are upgrading, talk about how they upgrade if they're cloud versus on-premise.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if they're cloud, you'll see the instant features that you're already seeing. Those are already in the system, depending on which package that you have. If you see things that are not in if you see features that you don't have, of course, reach out to the customer success team and ask them kind of if it's worth your while to either upgrade to another package that you have, especially if you're at the lower tier of our product offering. But then for on-premise is something that you'll be notified of in about a month. Of course, we always roll out cloud features first to our customers about a month to a month and a half, depending on the feature set we roll out. Then it goes to on-demand or on-premise. But our customer success team is going to be, they should be actively reaching out and notifying people who are on-premise that there is a new package. And if you feel like you haven't got that notification, either based off a prior release, maybe you're on qTest 4 and you should be on qTest 6, definitely reach out to our customer success team because one, we want to make sure we've got the correct information from you all, that we're communicating that, but then also we can help you walk through any of those upgrades that you may need to do.
Great. Last question. Any insight on what features will be in your next release?
Yes. We've got some more power user stuff that's coming out. We've got another automation plugin that will be coming out. And it's going to be around API automation, so be on the lookout for that one. We've also got some insights into some of the more reporting enhancements that we're going to be talking about later this year. So we'll be talking about that. Also at Quality Jam, we're going to be specifically talking about some of that as well. So we've got some more things around that. We've probably released, I would say 10 things this release, and now we're on a 5-week release cycle, so you can expect at least 10 to 12 more things in the next release. And I don't have the exact roadmap of what we're going to be coming out with. It's not set in stone exactly yet. That's great of working for a natural company is that we change constantly, but I know that those are a couple things we're going to be coming out with.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have today. I want to thank our presenter, Ryan Yackel. As Ryan said, if you have any questions about these features as it pertains to the products that you have, please reach out to our customer success team. You could get us through support.qasymphony.com. You could submit a ticket there, or you could even just give us a call. So we'd love to hear from you. We hope this webinar has been informative, and thank you for attending. Take care.